Please pay attention to the warning in this video, because this is an evil scam which is terrorizing people across the country, costing them thousands of pounds. It is not even a new scam. It's been quite prevalent in the United States for many years and in Canada, but now it's made its way to the United Kingdom. In fact, in some form or another, it's been across the United Kingdom for some years as well. Only now it is becoming more and more prevalent, and we've just recently had inquiries about this, which would, quite frankly, make your skin crawl.
Now, having just finished filming and started to edit, I feel like I need to make a caveat for the rest of this video. And that is that some companies are absolutely fantastic. They've got a sterling reputation, they do excellent work, and they should not be tarnished with the same brush that I'm describing in this video. So apologies to any of those companies that are genuine, providing a great service. I'd be happy to link any of you if I can check you out myself. Maybe I'll start vetting companies myself to provide a recommendation list. Not that I want to be held liable if they don't follow through on the promises, but you can be sure that I will be just as vocal about that if they don't. So just as the caveat, not all companies are like this. But with that said, listen to this.
So scammers and con artists pop up in all sorts of different forms all over the place, much like weeds. And that is quite fitting, because this particular scam is to do with weeds. Weeds, you say, what a strange thing to have a scam about, but listen to the story and you'll find out why. Now, what's happening is someone is coming around, particularly during springtime, which is why they are popping up, pun intended, in recent weeks, when of course the gardens are going to get a little bit overgrown and the weeds are popping up everywhere and you just need to get rid of them. Someone will come to the door, usually targeting certain areas that are, let's say, retirement areas and things like that. So if you know someone that might be living in a retirement area, you might want to warn them of this video, show them this video and let them know what they can do about it, which I'll come back to right at the end of the video, because there is help at hand and I am here to help you. If there is someone in a desperate situation, I will even help you personally myself. Depending on the circumstances, etc., you'll need to get in touch. But what happens is this. Someone will come around to the house and they'll say, I can see that you need X, Y, Z doing with the garden, front garden, back garden, weeds, windows, whatever it might be, but particularly to do with the garden and particularly to do with the weeds. So at first blush, this will be well represented. They might even have a van. They'll turn up wearing the correct sort of uniform for gardening type work. They'll seem to know what they're talking about. They'll provide some kind of estimate to do the work, but they won't provide much in writing. They'll just say, we can take care of this for you. It'll be in the region of X and we'll get it done and take care of it. Now, what happened next depends on the particular scammer. Either they will go ahead and carry out the work and then produce an invoice, or in some instances that we've heard of, they won't even do the work at all, but they will provide a bill. Now, how they've managed to do this is that they get the person's name and contact details and sometimes an email address, and of course they have the property address because they visited the property. Now, taking all these things together, they can formulate an invoice, and on the balance of probabilities, it looks like they've quoted for the work. Sometimes they will turn up and do the work, and then they bill the property address for that amount of money. Now, there are a couple of points to make about this straight away. First of all, the amount that they put on the invoice may not reflect the conversation that they had in the first place, and it may be a ridiculous amount of money to have paid for that service in any event, and therefore hadn't really ought to be paid. That's just the first of many problems that come out of this elaborate scam. The second is maybe they haven't actually done the work that they've quoted to do, or if there's bits of it, such as removing certain weeds, that they say that they've not agreed to do. But the bit that they say they agreed to do, they've done, and therefore the bill is due. Maybe they've said that they've just agreed to put down some weed killer along the grass areas or whatever, and you're not really sure what, if anything, they've put down on the grass, but they claim that they have. And it's going to be very difficult for anybody to prove that they haven't done so if they say that they have. Because when these cases go to court, there will be documentary evidence, all of which I'll come back to discuss a little bit later. But then, after this initial dispute, whether or not the person at the property address pays for this initial bill is just the start of this problem. Now, some people will flat out refuse to pay this, saying, I didn't agree to that, or you haven't done the work, or that's not the right amount, etc., and refuse to pay it, at which point they will be pursued for that alleged debt. But the second thing is, if they do pay for that bill, they think that that's the end of the problem. But much like weeds keep coming back, these companies keep coming back. And so the following year or even the following season, these companies will come back yet again and claim that they've done the work. Now, in some cases, they might actually do the work and then just drop a bill through the letterbox demanding for payment. and the person at the address might say, well, I didn't ask you to do that. But then they'll point you to something in the small print that says this is a repeat service. And the small print might be buried on their website somewhere, or terms and conditions that you may never have seen. But in the terms and conditions, it says that it is a repeat service and that they'll be coming back every season or every year, and the same amount is due. And so, again, regardless of whether they've done the work or not, because we've seen both variations, either they've done the work and they bill you for it, or they've not even done the work, or it ostensibly looks like they haven't done the work and billed you for it. What an insult. But this is a recurring problem, because not only have they turned up and either done the work or not done the work and then billed you for it, but they keep coming back again and again. Now, quite obviously, these people will then say, well, I don't want you to do the work for the avoidance of doubt. You know, this is the end of our dealings together. I do not want you coming back anymore. Now, that may or may not be the end of the matter, because if the person has not put that in writing, guess what? They will come back again, a third and a fourth, and they will keep coming back. And so this is an ongoing problem, much like the original weeds in the first place. How ironic. But that's not the end of the matter. There's obviously the amount allegedly due to the company for the work they have or haven't done. Now, a lot of people will be saying to the screen right now, but if they haven't done the work, then why should they be getting paid for it? Well, you're quite right. If they haven't done the work, they shouldn't be getting paid for it. But it's going to be on the balance of probabilities as to who the court believes if this eventually goes to court. One thing that might help to avoid this from happening in the first place is to avoid giving out any personal details, such as even your full name, certainly your email address, your phone numbers, and these kind of details that you would expect on an invoice. They will probably have your address because they are turning up at your address, but if they have all of those details that they can put on an invoice, I might consider that a breach of your personal security, because they might be able to create an invoice that looks extremely genuine, like they'd really had this conversation with you. Now, speaking of safety and security, many of you don't realize just how much of your personal information that you are leaking and sharing online with other companies, third parties, and ultimately those that might try to defraud you. And some companies will even sell on your information to the highest bidder. These are called data brokers or data marketers. And that is why I partner with a service called Incogni on this channel, which is a very straightforward service. When you sign up, you authorize and instruct Incogni to contact each of these data brokers and marketers and require that they delete your information from their servers in accordance with UK and US law. They are then legally required to remove that information. But then some of you might say that you're not really bothered about these companies having your personal information because nothing's really ever happened to you. But we've had real clients come to us that have had their lives turned upside down because these fraudsters have got somehow enough information, including names, addresses, telephone numbers, dates of birth, national insurance numbers, even copies of their passport and things like that, and enough information that they can impersonate you and take out loans and other contracts in your name, leaving you to pick up the pieces. And it's only when that happens that then you realize just how dangerous it is that your information is out there. And there are more and more data breaches and leaks reported over recent months and years, and countless millions of records and sets of records of information are out there. So today you can take a proactive step to prevent this from happening and prevent these fraudsters from taking money and then leaving you to pick up the pieces. There's a fantastic discount at 60% with using my code with the link in the description below. So go ahead and use that, sign up. It is a very straightforward service. There's a money back guarantee if you change your mind, but the peace of mind knowing that you're cleaning up the internet of your information that's out there will be worth every penny. So once again, fantastic discount, link in the description below. Go check it out. And now back to the video. As I mentioned, if this ever goes to court, it's going to be decided on the balance of probabilities as to who is right and who is wrong. Are you right in that the company's never done the work, or you never agreed to it in the first place, or the amount is wrong, etc.? Or is the company right, and on the balance of probabilities, they've done the work and they've done what they agreed to do, the amount is owing, and they can get a judgment against you? Well, here is where many of you might think the system is, to put it mildly, flawed. Because if this company brings a claim against you, and they have reams of documentary evidence, and they have all of their invoices in a row. They might even have emails that they claim to have sent to you. You might have dismissed them out of hand, thinking you don't have a relationship with this company and therefore no need to respond, etc., which is another reason never to ignore these things. But if they come with an invoice and emails and even a fully written out quotation, even if you've never seen the thing, if they make a whole case against you to make it look like they've quoted for the work, they've emailed you the quotation, they've sent you the invoice, they've done the work, they might even have a work schedule of having turned up and done the work, all of which is documentary evidence, supposedly, that they've had the conversations, quoted for the work, turned up and done the work, billed you for it, and they are now suing you for payment. Now, this can quickly turn into quite a disaster, because if you don't defend such a claim and they've filed it against you, then if you just fail to respond to the claim at all, i.e. you don't respond to the claim form and much less you don't file a defense, they will get judgment in default against you. And then with judgment in hand, they might come after you for an attachment of earnings, whereby money is deducted directly by your employer before it comes to you. They might seek a writ or a warrant of control. They might even make an application for a charging order against the property, depending on how much this has racked up. Now, I've read of some cases where this has been racked up to tens of thousands of pounds worth of invoices that the individuals have just ignored and flat out refused to pay. If they go to court and you ignore it, they will ultimately end up with a judgment against you. Then what you'll need to do is to apply to the court to set aside this judgment, and you'll need a very good basis for doing so. You'll need the basis, one, that you'd have a reasonable prospect of successfully defending the claim in the first place, or some other good reason why you should be defending it, and you must act promptly and show that you acted promptly when you received the judgment, and you'll need to explain why you didn't respond to the claim in the first place. And simply believing it to be nonsense in the first place is not a good reason. If you believe a claim to be nonsense in the first place, you need to respond to it in kind and say exactly that. You need to deny the claim against you, but also put forward your positive case, which is that you never had a relationship with this company. You never agreed for this company to do the work. You disagreed with the amount quoted. The amount quoted was far too much. You disagreed, or they are charging you for very much more than the amount quoted, etc. Whatever the reason might be, you need to put that in a statement of case in defense of their claim. Now, in many cases where there's a dispute over what is owing for work done, if there's no dispute that the work has been done, then the court is likely to take a quantum merit assessment, which means working out what the work should have cost at general market rates. And that can simply be, I've had this personally in court myself, where the judge will ask each person in the room, that being the declaimant, the defendant, and each of the lawyers, to hold up on a piece of paper what they think the hourly rate should be for this amount of work, and how many hours of work has been agreed. The court will then make an assessment as to what it believes the value of the work to be, and will make a judgment accordingly. That is, if there is no dispute that the work has been done. But that is where the real problem lies, because if there's a dispute as to whether the work's been done, then their claim that it has been done, they've got a record of turning up and doing it, is going only against your word unless you have any other kind of evidence that they have not done the work that they say they've turned up to do. Whereas if you have, let's say, for example, a Ring or a Nest doorbell camera, I'll link them below from Amazon. It is an Amazon affiliate link, but I'll link them below because I use those. Because if anyone makes a claim that they've visited your property for any such reason, you can check the footage and prove or disprove whether they've been to your property. Case in point, I had one courier telling me that they'd visited on 3 occasions and therefore needed to charge me an excess fee for redelivery. Only when I checked the camera footage and recorded events, they'd never been here at all, meaning they've got the wrong address. Ultimately, they did send me a photograph of what they believed to be my front door, which was not my front door. So all of that taken together, had they tried to charge me, even for the £50 that they wanted to charge me, I would have said, absolutely no way, I will defend that in court, even though it's £50. It's my £50 and you're not having it. So this just goes to show that you do need a documented evidence history to rebut such a ridiculous claim, because such a claim might be in the thousands. So this is a warning to you. They are targeting elderly areas predominantly because, for one, they do want the work doing. They very often can't do it themselves, and they might just be a little bit trusting of somebody who turns up, looks the part in the uniform with a van, is nice and polite, and asks them nicely if they can do the work. If they trust them to do that, they might just end up in this spiral of chaos that I've described here. Now, many of you may never have heard of this before, but that isn't to say that it doesn't happen. It does happen, which is why it's quite a prevalent scam. predominantly in the United States, but is now starting to grow and spread, pun intended, across the UK. So please do share this video with somebody. Make sure they are aware that this scam might happen. Just don't agree to anything on the doorstep, at the very least, unless you've got it written in a contract and you are there on the day that they agree to turn up, and only on that day. So you can be sure they've turned up, they've done the work, and they are charging the amount that you've agreed to pay. I hope this was useful. I hope it helps somebody. As I say, do get in touch if you have these problems yourselves. And as always, thank you for watching.